Hey guys, it's Luna, and today I'll be doing the 1000 subscriber milestone audio. And for that, I did put out a poll, and you guys decided you would like to get to know me. So I guess this is kind of like my version of a draw my life thing, except I can't draw for shit except stick figures, and that's not really going to work with anything that I'm about to tell you. So yeah, for now, I'm just gonna have this audio going, and I don't know if I'll find pictures that work with the story or if I'll just find some random things, maybe some cute things to balance out some of the mood, but we'll see how we go. Anyway, so yeah, you're about to get to know me a bit more. So I am in my mid 20s now, and every time I say that, I feel old. um, yeah, life has been interesting. I'd say interesting is a good word for it because it's been a roller coaster ride. Definitely been a roller coaster. Um, Started off pretty rough from a medical perspective. When I was a baby, I was diagnosed with cancer, specifically medulloblastoma. And I don't know all the nitty gritty details about it, but basically, I had two tumors in my brain. One was the size of a golf ball, and the other the size of the top knuckle area of the pinky finger. And when you think about that as an adult, that doesn't seem very big, but imagine that on the size of a child's head. We're talking like 1 to 2 years old. Suddenly it seems a lot bigger. Um, so yeah, that happened, and I had chemotherapy. I was too young for radiotherapy or radiation therapy. I had chemotherapy and I had surgery. And yeah, I was cured. So I haven't had any relapses. I've been very lucky in that regard. Um, there weren't very many people who had that particular kind of cancer. It's a rare form of brain cancer. At least that's what I've been told. Um, During the time of my treatment, I was one of three kids who had that cancer and was undergoing the specific kind of treatment that I was undergoing. Um, but yeah, I managed to get through it. I survived and haven't had any relapses. So I count my lucky stars for that. Um, and it was actually due to my cancer that we found out about another problem I had. I have what's known as a Chiari malformation. And basically, what that means is the back part of my brain, I think that's the cerebellum. I don't remember all the technical terms from biology back in year 10, but that part of my brain is droopy in a sense. It hangs a bit lower than the ordinary person. And the part of the brain that circulates the spinal and brain fluid and gets rid of the excess, that part of the brain doesn't work for me. And as a result of that, I have a shunt in my head. And basically, it's like a button on the back of my head and a tube inside me that gets rid of the excess fluid for me. It basically does the job that that part of the brain would otherwise be doing. And it's something that I have to live with. It's not a temporary measure. This has always been with me and it always will be with me unless they find some way of changing that, which they haven't so far. So I'm just assuming at this point that it's always going to be a thing, and I've learnt to live with it. Um, it has led to a few operations along the way, one of many that I've had in my life. Um, I've had to have it relocated, and by that I mean it hasn't been on every limb and part of my body. It's just been relocated on my head. So you don't really know about it unless I tell you about it or unless you like feel it with your hands. But yeah, feel it with your hands because what else would you use? But yeah, you wouldn't know it's there. I've got a full head of hair like any other person. Um, but yeah, I have got a few scars on my head that, again, you wouldn't necessarily know about unless I told you or unless you felt them. But yeah, they are there. And that's a mix of both the cancer operations and the shunt operations. I've had to have it relocated a few times. I've had to have it replaced because it got faulty in a sense. It's very much like a piece of machinery in a sense. When it gets faulty and it stops working, you replace the parts. So I've had that done a few times. And that, made a significant sum of surgeries at a very young age. Um, yeah, so it was interesting the first few years of my life, very medically based. But I've always had a really supportive and loving family, and they were always really great. My sister would hang out with me and watch Disney movies with me all the time, and my parents always looked out for me, made sure that I was all right. Um, the thing is, though, with having cancer, one thing that I learnt very quickly at a young age was that it wasn't something you talk about if you've had it. You don't make a big deal about it, and it's not that I was making a big deal about it, but as a kid, when something happens to you, you want to tell people. It's like, if a kid saw, a Disney character in real life, for example, they would want to tell you about it. It's just like that. That if a kid has a story, they want to tell it. And I learned that wasn't the kind of story that you told. Because when you told that story, you weren't the same anymore. I was treated differently as a result of that. People would act like I was sick, even though I wasn't anymore. People would, I don't know if they thought I was contagious or if they were just ignorant, which I can't really blame them for because we were all kids, but they very much treated me as an outsider in a sense. And I do feel like there was a connection between me being open about that stuff and their treatment of me. I was very much treated like someone else or something else. Sometimes I very much felt like I wasn't necessarily with them. Like I didn't feel like I fit in most of the time. But I got through it, just pushed on through because as a kid I did my very best to be optimistic. I found pleasure in the simple things and yeah, just kept going. Uh, what else? After, well, not after primary school, actually, during primary school, because that isn't enough on its own. From the age of 7, I started having, they call it odontic keratocysts. And for those who don't know what that is, it's cysts in the jaw region and the sinus area. So from the age of 7, I started growing those in that area. And I had to have a lot of operations over many years to remove them because a lot of them would grow deep in the tissue. It wouldn't be on the surface. Even the ones on the surface sometimes still had to be surgically removed because just because it pops doesn't mean that all of it has drained. And if you leave anything behind, it's going to regrow. For anyone who's watched like pimple popping videos and cyst removals and stuff, you probably get the idea because they would have talked about that probably, but it very much is that case. Like, if you don't get rid of all of it, it will come back and they can get infected. I have had some that have become infected before, and it's not fun. But yeah, I had a lot of cysts over the years. Like I said, I'm in my mid 20s and still getting them, not quite as frequently, but still happening. I have been told that I will, in quotation marks, grow out of them. And like I said, the frequency has dropped down, so I'm hoping I'm at the tail end. But for now, we're still going to some extent. It's a lot of years and a lot of surgeries. Anyway, and after that started, actually, my oral surgeon mentioned a syndrome. And no, I'm not talking about syndrome from The Incredibles. A genetic condition known as Gorlin-Goltz syndrome. Gorlin-Goltz. It took me a long time to remember how to spell that correctly, but now I remember. And it's a genetic condition. And I'm trying to remember the words. It's autosomal dominant, which basically means that if you inherit the gene, that's pretty much fucked up. Or if you develop it, then you will get the disease that comes along with it. As opposed to you could have the gene and just be a carrier, you will actually be affected by it. And it isn't always passed along by other people, or inherited, I should say. Like, neither of my parents had this condition. They got tested for it after we found out about it and about my diagnosis. Everyone was tested. My parents were tested, my sister was tested, and no one else has this condition. And it is a rare condition. It is a very rare genetic condition. I've had to explain it to doctors and specialists many times as I've run into more and more of them over the years, because it is so rare. Not a lot of them have heard of it. But yeah, my parents have never inherited it. We don't believe any of my grandparents had it. So an even more rare instance in this case. I have a rare genetic condition and I just developed it out of the blue, which isn't impossible from what I've read, but it is a rare occasion, or rare instance, I should say. So I'm a special little snowflake and really wish I wasn't. This genetic condition explains pretty much everything that's happened to me medically, or most of it. I don't think it necessarily caused my shunt with the brain issues, but it did cause, from what we've read, from what I've read online and from what I've heard from specialists, side effects of this condition are the type of cancer that I had as a child and keratosis. So odontic keratosis are a major side effect of this condition or symptom of this condition. It's one of the first things that is on the list when you read about the condition. It will say odontic keratosis. And basal skin cell carcinoma, or basal cell carcinoma, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, basically skin cancer. Those two are the big things that are always on the list of symptoms for this condition. And I've been lucky in regards to not having skin cancer yet, and I'm keeping my fingers crossed that it never happens. I do my very best to not let that happen. I try to minimize the risk because I have this condition, I am more prone to it. So I have to be more skin smart than the average person. Like, everyone gets told to slip, slop, slap, put sunscreen on, your sunnies, your hat, all that stuff. It's not a suggestion for me. It's something that I have to do. And when I don't do it, I'm really taking a risk. And I have taken that risk before, especially when I was younger. But I really, trying to cut down on my rebellious side now because I do know how serious this is and how much I really don't want to go back to the hospital if I don't have to. I've been there enough times, more than enough times, and don't necessarily want to go back. So yeah, the condition has taken its toll so far. One other thing that happened, a big thing as well, that's also connected to my genetic condition is a couple of years ago, or a year and a half ago now, December 2017, I had one of my ovaries removed. And originally that wasn't the plan. Originally it was just this growth that was there and was meant to be a lot smaller than it ended up being. What happened was I was having some issues and I started getting some tests done, and that's when we realized there was something there, because during an ultrasound they couldn't see my left ovary, and that's abnormal. So we're like, okay, what's going on? I got some other tests done and we found out there was a growth. And of course, the first thing that comes to mind is, please don't be cancer. um, and with ovarian cancer, you don't know that it's definitely that or definitely not that without, like, I guess, removing it or getting a sample of the growth itself. You can have blood tests done for like the receptors and stuff like that, but the absolute definite answer will only come from getting the growth itself, or at least a sample of it. So leading up to that operation, I was very, very nervous, very scared. I went through a lot mentally. And it was a bit of a stressful time even at home because I was bouncing between jobs. I was between temporary casual jobs for quite a long time. And I worked all the way up to that operation, actually, until the day before the operation. I still look back on that time thinking, how the hell did I manage that? But somehow I did. But yeah, originally I was told the growth was at max the size of a tennis ball, and that the removal surgery would be keyhole surgery and it would be easy. And absolute worst case scenario, they would need to remove the ovary, but they weren't convinced that would be necessary at that time. But due to the scans being as they were, we weren't 100% certain. It was just based on what they had seen so far. And I didn't find out until after the surgery just how different that went. I woke up in quite a bit of pain. Like, I was still numb to an extent, but I did feel sore, more sore than I thought would be the case for keyhole. And it wasn't long until I realized that I had more incisions than I thought I would have, and one that was a lot bigger. And that scared me, but I was still like half out of it at that time because I'd only just woken up with the anesthetic and all. So later on, when I was more fully conscious and aware and everything, they came in and told me what was going on, and my mum was there. She told me what was going on. Basically, the growth was the size of a grapefruit. And for those of you who don't know how big that is, think of an orange and maybe even a little bit bigger than that. That's how big it was. And it was firm, so they couldn't remove it via keyhole like they originally planned. So as a result of that, they had to change plan and do a bigger incision, which I have learned to live with. Like, I mean, it's a scar now, so I live with it like I do with the rest of my scars. It takes a bit more of a toll on me than my other ones, but, it's just something that I live with and I'm working through in my own way. So, all up, it's been very heavy medical wise. I've been through a lot of um I guess dives in a way. Like if you think of it from a coaster perspective, there's been some high moments because, when I was at school and stuff, I still did things with people. I tried to make friends. I enjoyed classes for most of the time. Um, there were some high moments. It wasn't all bad, but from a medical perspective, there were quite a lot of lows. Um, Secondary school was a struggle for me. Like, I'm kind of going back and forth on the timeline here, but if I go back to secondary school or high school, um, that was a difficult time because, again, I was going in and out of hospital for like the cysts and everything. Uh, Also got my jaw realigned just before year 12 because my natural alignment of my jaw was off and I couldn't bite down properly, which was affecting how I was eating, and affecting how I spoke. So I got that done, and that was a bit terrifying. Not quite as bad, I think, as um, the ovary surgery, but I was very nervous at the time. Um, I was on a liquid diet after that one, so I very quickly got very sick of eating soup, and it took me quite a while to get back into liking soup again. um, yeah, but high school itself was, again, I guess, at an older age, I was hoping people would be more understanding when it came to talking about hard times and such. Like, I would be open. I was open at first about the stuff that I went through. And again, I learned the hard way that people don't necessarily want to know about that stuff. And those that do learn about it don't necessarily take it well, or not necessarily don't take it well, but they take advantage of that information. They take advantage of what makes you uncomfortable, of the fact that you're willing to be so open with them. I learned that the hard way a few times, and that wasn't really helpful regarding friendships and trust issues. That really kind of reinforced those issues, which I have struggled with for a long time. Um, Another thing that I also tried to talk about was something that happened to me in year 8. Basically, I was on my way home one day and had something happen that no one wants to have happen to them. I was on my way home on the train. It was very packed, and I was unfortunate enough to be the target of someone who I could say isn't very nice, but that is a very, very, it's a very big understatement. In summary, I guess you could count me in the ranks of the Me Too campaign or movement. Um, it wasn't the worst case scenario of things that could happen to someone, even at that age, but it's not something that you want to have happen to you. It's not something you would even wish on your worst enemy, basically. Um, I did report it at the time. I didn't get justice for it, I would say. I was told they allegedly caught the guy who did it, but because they didn't have enough evidence, they couldn't press charges for my case. They could only press charges for other cases that he was found guilty of or was arrested for. And I hoped that it was the right guy that they caught. I hoped that he was given due justice for all the crimes that he did, because it's fucked up to say the least. And yeah, I went through a dark period back then. And again, that was something that I tried to talk to people about because I was very young back then. I was like 14, 15. I didn't know who I could turn to at that point. I didn't have a lot of friends in high school at first at that age. Um, I'd recently, I guess, not broken up with, but I'd disconnected from two people that I'd considered to be really close. We'd had really big fights and I wasn't in communication with them anymore. So I was going through a rough patch with two people that had been close to me, and I didn't know who to turn to about this thing that happened to me, this really big, awful thing. So I tried to make new friends and to talk to someone, and that didn't really work. Again, I found that people like to take advantage of people who are willing to open themselves up, and that was a sad thing. I really didn't expect it. I mean, I don't think anyone really expects it, but it sucked, to say the least. It was very isolating. But I tried seeking counseling at the school. They had school counselors there. I tried talking to them, and that didn't work at all because I tried to explain what happened to me and how I felt, like everything that I was thinking at the time. And basically, the counselor turned around and said, "That's impossible." Not the event itself, but just that everything I'd been thinking during the event was impossible because I was in trauma at the time, and traumatized people can't feel or think that much. Basically, it was what she had said and or implied to me at that age. So after that session, I stopped because I just thought, this is pointless. Like, you're not even listening to me. I know what I felt, I know what I thought, and I know how just crazy the whole thing was. So I stopped seeking counseling. I didn't really talk to anyone. Um, yeah, high school was hard. Secondary school was hard for me for a while. I think it took until the later years, like year 10 to year 12, when I started to open up again and let people back in. There was a long period of time where I was isolated and I preferred to be that way because of the trust issues and just, I felt like the only person I could rely on was myself. So I just stuck with that. I stuck with what I knew. And in the later years, I opened up again and made some school friends, people that I would talk to in class and sometimes hang out with at lunchtime and stuff like that. And, all in all, by the time that secondary school ended, I felt like it ended on a good note. After that, I started doing some further study in business administration, and then I went on to do some library studies because I'm a big fan of libraries and books and all that sort of stuff. Like, you could easily catch me looking at the books on the shelves and like wanting to put them in order or just reading books. I love stories, and it's part of the reason why this channel exists, because I'm creating these stories for you guys. I'm bringing them to life in a sense, and I love doing that. I love the creativity of that. Um, yeah, so I did study for a few years. I've been through a few jobs now. Some not so good, some started good, ended bad. Went through a bit of a rough patch, like I said, going between a lot of casual and temporary jobs, which they weren't bad experiences. It's just, it is a very different experience to feeling like you belong somewhere and having security in your job. And July last year, I landed my first full-time job, and I recently, like as of this week that's just gone by, passed the 1 year anniversary of being in this job. So it's really great and exciting news. Like, things have definitely turned out better than they were. My life is definitely at a higher point than it used to be. And like I said, it hasn't all been like a downward spiral sort of thing. It's been up and down. Like I said, it's literally been a roller coaster ride of sorts. But like I said, I've always had a really supportive family along the way, and I've been really thankful for that. My parents have always been here for me. My sister has always been here for me, and my sister-in-law as well. They've always been here, and I really appreciate that. I'm thankful every day for everything that they've done for me. And I know that without them, I wouldn't be where I am now. I know I would be in a much darker place if I hadn't had them, if I didn't have them now. But yeah, definitely in a better place now. And, I've opened up this channel. I started this channel actually the same year that I had that operation in 2017. So December that year, I decided after that operation to change things up because I thought it's been so many years of all this medical stuff, all this stress, and feeling like I didn't have any control. And I just need to switch it up. I need to change it because it's just taken up so much of my life already. I only get one life and it's mine, and I need to take control of it. So yeah, I already started listening to other artists and I fell in love with what was happening and the community. And I decided, you know what, I'm just going to dive right in here. I'm just going to go on a whim and see where this takes me because it feels right. It's fun. I can help people, which is something I've always wanted to do. I like to help people, and I can do that through this, whether it's through entertainment, relaxation, comfort, whatever it is, I can do that. I can provide that for people like others have for me. So I've just thrown myself into it and I've never looked back. And I know I haven't always been consistent with my channel. And like I've done many other times, I will apologize again. um, it's never been my intention to fall off the wagon about it and to get inconsistent. It's literally just been a matter of life getting in the way sometimes, whether it's been just mentally or with work or appointments, whatever's been going on. Sometimes my life just gets a bit crazy and I step back, even in ways that I don't mean to. And it's something that I'm working on because I know it's not a good habit to step back and isolate myself, and I'm working on that. So, again, with this channel, that's another way of doing that, to focus on something that I can come back to and push myself towards. And again, I haven't been perfect at that, but I am human, and I appreciate that you guys have always been around. And yeah, I'm just basically just going at it as we go. And as I said earlier in my last audio, or in the update one, I will be going on a holiday in a couple of weeks. It will be my first time overseas, which I'm, well, super excited about. My first time overseas on my own, but I'm super excited about it. And again, it's another way of me taking control of my life and just deciding to live it, and to live it to the fullest, instead of letting myself sit here just living day by day, doing the normal stuff and nothing else. I'm pushing myself out there. I'm telling myself and making myself do these things. It's like, what do I want to do? Where do I want to go? And let's do it. Let's make the plans and let's do it. No more excuses. There's been enough drama and stress and other shit. There's been enough of people telling me what I need to do. It's time for me to decide what I'm going to do. it's my life and I'm going to live it. So this is another way of doing that, and I'm super excited. It will also be over my birthday as well. I will be going up another year while I'm overseas. And the funny thing is, this birthday will actually mark the, I don't think it's not an anniversary because it's the first time. I will be turning 26, and this year will mark the year where my age is higher than the number of operations I've had, which is huge. Like, not just thinking about the number of operations itself, which is crazy, but just thinking that I'm finally going to say that I have lived longer than the number of operations I've had, which is something I didn't think would happen for a long time. And it has been a long time, but I thought it would be longer still. And it wasn't until a couple of months ago that I realized this year is that year. So I'm glad that I made plans for this holiday because it's perfect. I'm celebrating this achievement, which is phenomenal and insane and crazy and something no one should have to live through. But I'm going to celebrate it to the fullest. I'm just going to go out, have some fun, try new things, and see what life throws at me, opportunity wise, and hopefully have a hell of a lot of fun. As for plans for the future, I want to travel more in the future. I'd like to see more of the world, and that's one of the benefits of watching all these vlogs and stuff online is you get to see little snippets of other countries and cities, and it makes you think about where you want to go and what you'd like to try. So that's definitely in my future. Um, Working on this channel, obviously, and helping it grow and become something bigger and better for you guys. Because, again, without you guys, this wouldn't be here. Like, if this had fallen in the water, then I would have, not continued with it because it wouldn't be reaching out to anyone. But because you guys are here, it is proof that it is doing something, and that makes me so happy. Not just that this is working, but that I am helping people because it's something that I'm really passionate about, and I know what it's like to go through really hard times and how hard it can be to bounce back from that. So I want to be able to help people as best I can and in any way that I can. So this channel is going nowhere bad anytime soon. It's not closing down. I'm not giving up on you guys by any stretch anytime soon. It's only going to get bigger and better, in my opinion. So as long as you guys are here, I'm going to be here. 110%, 150% even, all the way. And aside from that, I'm just going to try and focus on living my life as best I can and taking some control back. Because for a long time it felt like my condition was controlling me. And I'm sick of living like that. I don't want to live like that anymore. I'm the one driving this car. It's my life, and I'm going to live it. That's the plan. So, yeah, that's getting to know me. I'm sorry this went on for so long. I know some of the content was a bit heavy, and I hope that, it wasn't too uncomfortable for you guys. Yeah, I'm not really sure what else to talk about. So I might just leave it here. But if you have listened to this whole thing, thank you for listening. And I hope that, well, I'm not going to say I hope you enjoyed it because I don't know if this is the sort of audio people enjoy technically, but I hope that it was maybe helpful to someone out there, whether you are going through a lot of medical stuff or if it's just, the fact that I'm being so open and showing how human I am, I guess. in any way. Like, if this can help someone, then that's great. Or if it's educational for people, then awesome. Um, but yeah, I'm going to leave it here because it's been going on for a while now. I hope you guys have had a great weekend, and I hope that the rest of this year treats you all well. It's already gone so fast. We're halfway through July, which is crazy. But yes, I hope the rest of this year treats you all well, and I promise to get the next audio up very soon. All right, take care, guys.